Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Wine 101. My name is Amy Nichols. I'm the campus coordinator at the Campus for Creative Aging, a division of Region 4 Area Agency on Aging. We are so happy to have everybody here tonight and super excited for a first from the Campus for Creative Aging. We've done some parties with cider, but we've not done one with wine yet. So super excited about that, and always excited to have what I call the smartest man I know back. Normally he teaches us scams. So this is a little outside, or Bitcoin. So you are a jack of all trades there, Mr. Charlie. Charlie Olszewski is here to give us the whole lowdown on Wine 101. And I need this class desperately. So I'm happy to have you, Charlie. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. We will, we'll talk about scams here a little bit too. We can't do without that, can we?
Yeah, we can. That's awesome.
There is, whoops, that's right. Now I'm gonna have to change the sharing because we want to share the one that's.
Hi, Mary. I got to greet everybody, but I missed you, so I'm sorry.
Okay, so I think.
Okay, you're in presenter view.
All right, we're all set. Let's start at the beginning of this. So like I said, grab a glass of wine to sip on. How many, some people do have wines, don't they? Or
yay, Mary's got wine. Hey, Charlie, you're in presenter view. You want to be that way?
Oops, no.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Oh, it's been a while since I've done this, so I don't remember which one.
Slideshow from the beginning, and you might have to swap your view.
Yeah.
And it says resume.
Yeah, let's stay in there, I think.
Okay, that's fine. We can still see it.
Yeah, you've got the whole thing. So basically, I want to go through and just give you a broad overview. It's like a wine 101. So a little bit of everything about wine. And I'm not going to answer all your questions, I'm sure, but throw out questions as we go along, and I'll do the best that I can. There's a ton of stuff here that we can go over. My expertise comes from basically being a member of the American Wine Society. That's where I learned about wine, starting in the mid 1990s back in Cleveland. I was a member of the Cleveland chapter of AWS. AWS is the biggest wine organization, I think, perhaps in the world, focusing on wine education. I also ran the Twin Cities, or now they call it the Southwest Michigan Newcomers Wine Tasting Group, for 12 years too. So learned a lot more by doing it. So basically I learned about wine by drinking wine, lots of it, with a lot of good friends. So several things I want to go through here, talk about wine expertise and experts, talk about types of wines, tastings, glasses, aging, bad wine, ambiance of food pairings, how to do tastings and all that stuff. So it is a lot of material to cover, and we'll go through it as much as we can.
Wait, there's bad wine?
Well, and I'm going to talk about that. There is such a thing as bad wine, and there is such a thing as not bad wine. Just because you don't like it is not a bad wine. So something to keep in mind as you think about wine drinking, and especially if you're interested in joining wine tasting groups or running a wine tasting group, creating your own with a small group of people, there are two different, perhaps, extremes of this. One is you would do this purely for socializing, or the other is you would do it purely for learning. Most people are sort of in between either of the two of them. But if you consider one view over the other, what you need to think about is what's the general focus. And if you're doing this, if you're the one who's going to actually lead a group of people, you probably want to be upfront about what your goals are. Do you want it to be for socializing? Do you want this to be for learning about wine? So let's talk about wine experts or wine expertise. And let's start off with a poll question to begin with. I'd like to get an idea of the age group that we have here. So our first poll, Amy, have you got ready? There you go. How many of you are 65 or older? How many are in the 30 to 64 range? How many are less than 30?
It may only let you vote one time, just so you know. I don't remember if I hit all the more than one choices, because there's more than one people at a couple of these places, one person. So if they don't worry about it. Give us the best answer. And please know that we do not check IDs. So you can answer whatever age you want to answer.
And the lowest age is 30 or under.
Yeah, you can't be, yeah, exactly. You can be 30 or under, but there's no 21-year-olds in this crowd. So
You may know who's lying here.
except at Steph's house. Yeah. The wine might make us feel younger, right, Mary?
That's right. What do we feel like versus what we are?
Yeah, exactly. It's a mental thing. So, all right. Looks like this crowd is well 30 and above, Charlie.
Yeah, definitely is. And little more than half at the 65 and above. All right, how about our next? We've got another poll question. So just wanting to figure out where people are coming from. Are you from Southwest Michigan? Are you from somewhere outside of Southwest Michigan, but in Michigan? Are you in the USA, but not Michigan? Are you outside the USA?
Mary, this is where your heart is.
There we go. So we do have 3 people, it looks like, that are not from Michigan, but they're from the USA.
Yep.
So my friends from England did not show up, I guess.
Oh. Next time.
Okay. All right, so that gives me an idea of, the population I'm looking at and where you're from. So let's now talk about expertise on this thing. So one of the groups of experts, truly experts in this, are people who are what are called wine judges. The American Wine Society has a training that's a 3-year training that people go through. It's a very extensive training, and they become certified wine judges at the end of that. In my Cleveland chapter that I belong to, we had several people who were certified wine judges. We had several people who were going through the process of becoming wine judges. So I saw them going through the process and decided that I didn't want to go through that process. And I would just drink and learn about it on my own. So these are people who, they will taste a wine and they can literally tell you, is this a Merlot? Is it a Cab? Is it a Zin? They can tell you what varietal it is. They can probably tell you which country it comes from. They can probably even tell you what year or real close to what year that is. They really study, learn, taste and drink wines and learn all about it. That's the American Wine Society. It's a great organization. I think I've put in a lot of URLs in the handout that you've got, but I've added some since I sent that. So if you want a revised version that has all of them, send me an email and I'd be happy to send you the revised one. But AWS, American Wine Society, is a good organization, a great place to go to look for assistance and information about wines.
Hey, Charlie,
So-
two things. Charlie, two things. Number one, can you pull your mic just a little bit closer to you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And number two, can anybody join the AWS? Or does there?
Yes, anybody can join the AWS. It's a big the primary focus of this is on education, educating the public. Not everybody has to be wine judges. You don't have to go through the wine judge training. Probably very few of the people who are AWS members actually go through the wine judge training. They do an annual event every year. So it's a large event. It's located somewhere. Cleveland was a host city one year, and your chapter then has to run that thing. But yeah, anybody can join. Go there, they'll tell you how to join. They have chapters throughout the country, and that's really the best thing. You can join it and you get access to all the data on their website. But if you join one of the chapters, that's the best thing. They will be doing wine tastings frequently, and that's where you're really going to learn about it. Another set of experts we have are called master sommeliers. So these are people who go through a 4-exam process. So there's a level 1, level 2, level 3, and then the final level, once you pass the final level, is the master sommelier level. These people basically it's really aimed at the service industry. So these are people who work as waiters and sommeliers. So when you ask for a sommelier at a restaurant, hopefully you're getting somebody who is a master or at least a level 1 or a level 2 or a level 3 sommelier. And they know a lot about wine also and can help you with that. So they were established basically to improve the beverage knowledge in hotels and restaurants. That's what they were about. American Wine Society, the average person, educating them about wines, and then providing a way to get certified. The other one is the Wine Spirits Education Trust. That leads to something called a Master of Wine. And that, I believe, also had 3 different levels to that as well. These people are really more into a more complete, full knowledge of wine. So whereas the sommeliers deal with the restaurants, so how do you serve wines, what kind of wines, being very knowledgeable about wine so that they can assist customers in choosing a wine to go with their food or to just drink as a sipping wine. So different, Master of Wines dive much deeper into theory and science behind wine. The sommeliers are more heavily interested in the service focus on that. So these are, if you look for, and you're looking for people that you want to get advice from, if you're looking for a wine judge, AWS certified wine judge, or a master sommelier, or a master of wine, these are the people that you can go to, and they know a lot about it. So that's if you want to go through it. In fact, I just got May 22nd, I got an email from Wine Enthusiast. This is a great place to get information, the Wine Enthusiast magazine online. And just on May 23rd, they said, here you go. We're now doing the Wine and Spirits Education Trust courses, so you can get certified through them, as well as many other ways.
They have great recipes too.
They do.
If anybody likes to cook, there's some good ones in there.
You have to stop and take a pause for
Yeah, you do have to pause. I was wondering if we're taking a halftime break to refill in this class.
we probably might need to. So those are people who actually go through exams, go through very rigorous study in order to get certifications, but there are a lot of other people who are very, very knowledgeable as you look around. So wine pours at local vineyards. Wine pours certainly don't necessarily have the broad background of a sommelier or a master of wine or a judge, although some may be that, and they're volunteering their time at a local vineyard. The wine pourers are trained by that vineyard. So those wine pourers really know, if you go to Fenn Valley, those wine pourers at Fenn Valley know the Fenn Valley wines. If you go beyond that, they may not know a lot about the others. If you go to Round Barn, they're going to know those wines there. If you go to Domaine Berrien, they're going to know them really well. One of the things when you're doing wine tasting, don't be afraid to ask. And people who take these jobs, people who do this stuff, they love talking about wines. They love sharing your knowledge. So often my wife and I would go to the vineyards, and some people are standing there talking amongst themselves, and it's like they're afraid to ask the people that are pouring. Ask them. So I would sometimes ask them, and then the person next to me, oh yeah, they're listening. But don't be afraid to ask. That's where you're going to learn a lot of stuff about wine, is from them. Wine cellars. There are wine stores. Typically, I'm not talking about grocery stores. Grocery stores, you're not really going to be able to get any assistance. But if you go into a wine shop, certainly the owner of the wine shop is probably extremely knowledgeable, but the staff also is probably quite knowledgeable in general wine about all sorts of wines. So they don't focus necessarily on one vineyard. Some of those people at the wine cellars are likely have some sort of certification in some of the wines as well. So they're pretty knowledgeable.
Hey, Charlie, I'm just going to let everybody know that I have enabled closed captioning. So if you all, like at Kathy's house, they're having a little trouble hearing you, to please go to the 3 little dots that are on your ribbon at the bottom or top of your screen, depending on where you're looking, and hit closed captioning. It will pop up the closed captioning so you can kind of read what Charlie's saying, as well as hear him.
Right. And if you've got 3 or 4 people there, and especially if you're on a phone, good luck.
Yeah.
Put the closed captioning on. So you can learn a lot on your own. You can learn a lot by going to wine events. Waco Beach down here, we've done, during the pandemic, a lot of these events stopped. So we didn't do as many of them. But now I think I see a lot of them starting to start up again. So Waco Beach does a wine event down here in St. Joe. They did wine events up in, say, South Haven, I know they did some wine events too. I suspect we're going to see a number of those things coming back as well. Like I said, American Wine Society, AWS, does an event every November. Is the national, there are no chapters that can do wine tastings that month. That's the national wine event that they have. Wine magazines, some of these continue to be magazines you can buy. Most of them are gone online. Some of them are only online. So when you're looking for information, I highly recommend Wine Spectator. There's the URL again, that should be in your handout. So you can just click on it in the handout and it'll take you right to it. Wine Spectator has been one of the leading top level. These are the ones that talk about the high level wines, the high end wines. When we lived in Cleveland, we couldn't wait to get the Wine Spectator magazine, but then when we went to the wine stores, they were all sold out of the ones that we wanted. So Wine Enthusiast also does a magazine, another great website to go to get information about wine. Wine Folly, you're going to see several of the screen captures I have included in this. You're going to see a lot of stuff from Wine Folly, Wine Searcher, and others as we go through the presentation. Another thing is just your friends. Sit around, talk about wines, drink them together, discuss them. Sometimes you meet people at an event and you find out that they're interested in wine, so go with it. The most important thing I think about wine is that there are many levels of expertise. Some of these, certainly when you get to these people who are certified, they have a lot of expertise, but everybody starts out not knowing a whole lot and they move up. You also can gain a lot more expertise if you want as well. Basically, start drinking it, start talking with people. That's the key, is discuss the wines with other people. So types of wine, and we want to find out what kind of wines do you guys?
Are you advancing your slides, by the way?
I think so. Is it
No, you're not. No, you're not.
It's not?
Nope, it's not. It's still showing your first slide. I wondered what you were doing.
Let me start over again here.
Yeah, do a different slideshow, and I will do the poll question while you work on that. All
Okay.
right.
You have a different
There we
slide?
go. Yep, that's a good slide. You got it now. So which category of wine do you drink? Why is it not letting me launch? That's
and
weird.
You can choose more than one with that too.
Yeah, hang on. It's not letting me launch it. We're having technical difficulties today. Why is Zoom being so ridiculous?
I know I've not done one of these onlines for a while, so
I just did one. I mean, the first two worked just fine. Oh, it says I'm still sharing. Hold on, let's try that. There we go. Okay, so which category of wine do you all like?
And choose as many as you want.
You can choose more than one if you want. Sparkling, fruit wine, or dry. I'm betting I know the answer to this one, but
You are.
And I would be the dry, I have to say, not super dry, but that would be what I would pick. So here we go. Looks like most everybody is in the dry wine department. There's a couple sweets and some fruit. So
one fruit and one sweet. Okay.
One fruit, one sweet. Yeah.
There you go. All right. So I think I got another question for you coming up here.
Let's make sure Amy can run that one, right? All right, here we go.
So white wines.
White wine, here we go. This one is definitely a multiple choice, so feel free to pick more than one.
Yep.
And Charlie Albarino, is that how we say that one?
Albarino.
Wagner and Gewürztraminer.
Yep. Albarino, Viognier, and Gewürztraminer. Oh,
Viognier. Okay, well, see, there you go. I have a funny story about Gewürztraminer when we're done. I'll give everybody just a minute.
And I should have put in a none of these.
None of the, yeah, we didn't, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I assume those who are not answering probably have not drank any of those three.
Right. All right, here we go. So it looks like
two Albarino.
Albarino is the one that is
well, 2 out of the 4, 3 Viognier and 3 Gewürztraminer. So people are familiar with at least several of these. So what's your story?
Okay. So my story is that when my oldest daughter, Olivia, was like 4, my mother-in-law and I went wine tasting and we were trying Gewürztraminer, and my mother-in-law could not say that. And my little 4-year-old piped up and said, I can say Gewürztraminer. So
All right.
of course she could. But we do have someone who would like you to explain those 3 wines to us, please.
Well, they're very different wines. So these are, and we're going to come into this a little bit more.
Okay.
These are several different varietals of white wines. All of these are white wines. They're probably lesser known, but when I'm talking to an audience, I want to kind of gauge, are people just sticking with Chardonnay and Pinot Grigio and Sauvignon Blanc, or do we have people who have got out a little bit more? And this tells me that some of you have expanded your horizons already, and that's a good thing. So yeah, the Spanish, German, Gewürztraminer is one that actually is kind of an interesting one because it has quite a range. And I think a lot of restaurants don't serve it because it can be very sweet or it can be very dry. And people really need to know which one they want, and whoever's serving the wines needs to know enough about them as well. So let's look at reds. What's the experience like with reds? Since people like more dry wines, we might find a number of you have done red wine. So got a poll question for that one.
Of course I do.
Malbecs, Petit Verdot, or Mourvedre?
Mourvedre I've never even heard of. Again, more than one, you can answer more than one, so.
You can. So, and we may not have, so it might be a white wine group.
I'm thinking this might be a white wine group. Lots of
Yeah.
Malbec, couple Malbecs,
2 Malbecs,
a Petit
1
Verdot,
Petit
and a,
Verdot. Nobody else had Mourvedre, or that they know. Now,
or that they
another
know of.
thing- yeah, another thing too, and I hadn't actually put that in the slide, so let me just say something about that. Wines, well, I do have it in the slide. Actually, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but sometimes when you get a wine, it's got 3 or 4 different varietals in there, and you will see that actually, so I'll skip it and wait till we get to it.
All right, Anne's a smart girl, she's ahead of us.
There you go. Okay, so let's talk about, and the issue is how many different ones are there and how do I find out about them, right? So overall, when I look at overall wines and wine types, what I see is dry and sweet, dry versus sweet. And it looks like most of you are into dry wines. You can look at red versus white. I'm going to guess that most of you tend to go towards white wines, looking at the answers they had to the poll questions. We can talk about still or sparkling wines. And still seems to be a word that most people don't know. I think most people know sparkling, and better than that, they probably know champagne. And they think champagne is the sparkling wine. But still wines would be any dry or any whites, any reds that are not sparkling. So that's the differentiation. It's either a sparkling wine or it's a still wine. Fruit wines are actually gaining in popularity. In fact, I just read something over the pandemic. There's a big increase in the sales of fruit wines. So people are really getting into fruit wines. Another way, other types of wines to look at are ice wines. Ice wines are very sweet wines. There are rosés, and today is kind of a cool jury day, which is why I decided to drink a Pinot Noir for my wine. Otherwise, if it was 80, 85 degrees like it was a couple of weeks ago, got those rosés out there and we're drinking those rosés. Those are great for this time of year once we get to the 80 degrees.
Normally great for this time of year.
Yeah. Ports are another type of wine. This is what's called a fortified wine. So now you know that we have still wines, we have sparkling wines, and we have fortified. So there's 3, that's the 3 broad categories of wines that we have. There are a lot of other different types of wine. Vinho Verde, I didn't know about until we went to Portugal. And when we rented a place for a couple of weeks, I think I picked it because the wine store was right at the end of the block where the place was that we were staying. Or I found that out as soon as we got there and just loved it. And that's where I found out about Vinho Verde. Again, talking to people and asking them. I went into the wine shop. The 2 of us went in and I said, tell me about your wines. And they said, what would you like to know? Obviously, you're American. We don't have many American wines. I said, no, I don't want to drink American wines. I'm in Portugal. I want to learn about Portuguese wines and learn them. And the woman was really good. And that's where I found out about Vinho Verde. It's actually a fizzy wine. It's not a true sparkling wine, and it's not a true still wine. There's Madeira. There's a whole bunch of others as you get into wine tasting. Lots and lots more. So let's take a deeper dive into this and talk a little bit about the sweet and dry thing. So again, like I said, Wine Folly, and on your handout, I believe I have the winefolly.com website. Great place. It's one of my favorite places for getting educated, for learning about this stuff. So they have, for red wines and white wines, they have a sweetness chart. And you can see how sweet or how dry the wines are. So the sweetest of the red wines will be the Sangiovese, the Tempranillo, Cab Sauv, Pinot Noir, Syrah, Merlot. And then they get much more dry as you get to Malbec, Grenache, Zinfandel, Port, and Tawny Port. On the other hand, we do have the white wines. The sweetest of the white wines would be the Muscadet, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Gris, then Chardonnay, going up to Gewürztraminer, Amy's favorite wine.
My favorite word.
Oh, favorite word.
I love that word.
The port, and actually this is going the other way. I'm sorry. Muscadet is dry all the way up to the ice wine, which is very, very sweet. So Muscadet, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Gris are the drier of the white wines. So how do we determine that? Actually, if you buy a wine and go to that winery, and you might be able to get the tasting sheet, the technical sheet on that, it will tell you how much residual sugar there is. And that's how we tell if it's a sweet or dry. If it has 3%, greater than 3% of residual sugar, we consider that to be off dry or semi-sweet. If it's 5% or more, then we talk about that as being noticeably sweet. 7 to 9% is what dessert wines are. Those are real sweet, considered real sweet. So they typically will list the residual sugar and percentage, but some of them will put the grams per liter of residual sugar, and then you have to do little calculations, because 10 grams per liter of residual sugar is 1%. So if their tasting sheet says 33 grams per liter, then you know you've got an off dry wine that you're dealing with. So again, Wine Folly, great place to go and look at that stuff. Champagnes, let's talk about champagnes and sparkling wines. Most people talk about champagne, and they think that that's a general term. Well, champagne is a very specific type of sparkling wine. The category is sparkling wine. Under sparkling wine, if it's a sparkling wine in France, it can be a champagne or a Crémette. So there are two, and I think a lot of people don't even realize there are two
Defining agents.
Hang on one second. There we go. Sorry.
Okay, so champagne is made in the Champagne district of France. That doesn't mean the rest of France can't make sparkling wine. The rest of France, well, not all of it, but some of the other parts of France will make sparkling wine, but those are called Crémettes. So those are French sparkling wines. Prosecco is the sparkling wine that's made in Italy. Cava is the one that is made in Spain. There are differences in tastes for these things because they're made differently. Champagne is fruity notes, generally thought of as fruity, apples to pears, more citrus leaning notes for champagne. The Crémette will have a different flavor. So it might not, it's still somewhat like that, but Crémette, the main areas that you get Crémette from is from the Loire Valley, from Alsace, and from Burgundy. Prosecco tends to be more fruit driven. So you're not going to get the citrus leaning on there, but just solid fruit. Cava tends to be more savory, has maple apple tastes and zesty notes. So once you know this about your sparkling wines, now when you go to the store, if you want something that's more savory, look for a Cava, something from Spain. The variance is the type of grapes that are used in making the sparkling wines. In different countries, they use different types of grapes, where they're grown, obviously from one country to the other, and the fermentation process that they use. Be careful with what we think of as sweet or dry when we're dealing with sparkling wines. This is, again, wine folly, and this is dealing with champagne, but it applies to all of the sparkling wines. So when you ask for a dry sparkling wine, that's actually the second sweetest sparkling that you can get. Sparkling wine, demi-sec is the sweetest, dry is the next sweetest, then extra dry, then brut, extra brut, and brut nature. So the brut and the extra brut, if you want a dry sparkling wine, you don't buy the dry, buy a brut or an extra brut wine. So just a word of caution on that. So there you go, second sweetest.
That seems backwards. It just
I know.
seems. Yeah.
And that's what we I found when we were doing the wine tastings, and my wife and I weren't that big into sparkling wine, so we got into it, but people seemed to get confused. I bought a really dry sparkling wine. See, it's dry. Well, it's neck pipe. It doesn't work that way. So I didn't create the naming for that. So what makes a cab a cab? What makes a Merlot a Merlot? What makes a Zinfandel a Zin? Well, there's two things that make it. One is legalities and licensing. So if you buy a Cab Sauvignon in the US, it must have at least 75% Cab Sauvignon grapes. When I talked earlier, I said, we'll talk about they're not all Cab Sauv. When you buy a Cab Sauv, it may not be all Cab Sauv grapes. When you buy a Merlot, it may not be all Merlot. In the European Union, to be called Cab Sauvignon, the few that actually use that term, it has to be 85% of that grape. The other way that we can talk about this is by getting to know the varietals, getting to know the tastes and all that stuff. So that's the other thing that makes a Cab Sauv a Cab Sauv. So some other terminology you may run into is Old World and New World. So Old World refers to Europe. So England and France, those are considered Old World wines. US, Australia, were considered New World wines. In the US, we go and buy a Cab, a Merlot, a Zin, a Pinot. If we're in Europe, and if we're in France, we're going to buy a Bordeaux, or we're going to buy a Rhone, or we're going to buy something else like that. They don't use the terms Cab, Syrah, and the rest of that stuff. They know that if they're buying a Rhone and it's a red, it's probably a mix of Grenache, Syrah, Carignan, and Mourvedre. If it's a Bordeaux, it's going to be a mix of Cab, Sauv, Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. And occasionally some Carmenere will also be in that. So in Europe, it goes by region, and each region is better, just like in the US, some areas are better at growing certain grapes than other areas. So the regions, people know that that's what's grown there. Then we have something called the Meritage. So this is another red wine. This is a red wine that was actually, and the name Meritage was actually created by a group of Americans who wanted to create a wine that was the American version of a Bordeaux. In other words, it had Cab Sauv, Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. So that's what a Meritage is. You'll find that in the US. You won't find that in Europe. You're going to go to France and you'll find a Bordeaux. But if you're looking for something that's a Bordeaux, it's a Meritage. So what we're going to talk about a lot, and the way we really tell if a Cab is a Cab or a Merlot or whatever, is by its appearance, by its aroma, and by its taste. Those are the three things that we're going to be looking at. Those are the three things that you tend to focus on. There are a number of others as you get more sophisticated in this, but at the basic level, it's those three things. So the other day, a friend of mine and I had, our wives tried to share too. We let them share, but they didn't.
Don't even say that out loud, Charlie. I know your wife.
Oh, that's right. You still have and Bill and I were glad that they didn't want any of it. But here's the case. So this is Decoy Cabernet Sauvignon. That was the one. And that's the way it's labeled on the bottle. The varietal composition, though, when you go to the winemaking notes and you get the tasting sheets for this, it's 78%. So it just meets the US requirement of 75%. 78% Cab Sauvignon. It's 13% Malbec, 4% Zin, 2% Petit Syrah, 2% Syrah, and 1% Petit Verdot. So they do mix these things up. The winemakers who are making this are looking for a certain taste. They're looking for something that's going to stand out from the rest of the pack of the other cabs, and they start doing a lot of mixing. The other thing about this one, California has a whole bunch of appellations, a whole bunch of wine regions. So this one took grapes, 66% of these grapes were from Sonoma County, 24 from Central Coast, 6% from North Coast, and 6% were just general California. So this is what you want to do is you want to look at these tasting notes if you can get it. You actually have to go to the winemaker's website. And so I went to Decoy's website and I was able to get these notes, and then you find out about these things. So like I said, USA, it's got to be 75%. They met it, they're 78. Babbage, another favorite wine of somebody sitting right behind me. This is an example of that sugar that we were talking about. So 3 grams per liter. This would be just under this would be like right at the border of an off-dry wine on that. But again, you go and get those tasting sheets and you'll get this information. Technical sheets, tasting sheets on the websites is what you'd be looking for. So how many wines are there? Well, there are a lot of different varietals of wine, tons of different varietals. This is a poster I have actually up in my, I don't know what we call our mud room, my back room right behind the kitchen, so that I can run there real quick and say, what's this supposed to taste like? When I forget, because there are a whole bunch of them. This particular one, DeLong, and on your handout, you have the website to this. You can actually purchase this. I think that's $25 for this. It's a 2-foot by 3-foot chart of all these, and it's got 184 different varietals on it. As you can see, there are whites and there are reds that are listed there. What it does is lists them by weight. So these are the real heavy reds at the bottom. These are the very light reds at the top. You can see that whites, there are some whites that are fairly heavy too. They're as heavy as some of the reds, and they go up to being much lighter than that. It also shows acidity from here to there. So low acidity on this side of the chart, high acidity on that side of the chart. But you really have to follow, there are some little dotted lines that go through this thing in order to follow the acidity. I don't think you can even see them on this thing because it is 2 foot by 4 feet. But
Pretty tiny.
yeah, so when I try to make a picture of it and show it to you, it's pretty small. But the acidity runs, I mean, it could be really strange. These lines go like this type of thing, go down and around and that. So acidity varies. So a Pinot Noir is actually a very high acidic red. It's the highest level of acidity that you can get for red. So especially when you're thinking of food pairings with this, the acidity becomes really important on that, to look at that. So again, there's the website, 184 list. This is by far, this is not an exhaustive list. So we have this stuff. I have the information that I kept on my, I kept it on my laptop. I keep it on my phone also quite often. And when we go to Spain and I look and see, okay, we're going to go to a wine tasting and it's this, none of them are on there. Go to Portugal and say none of them were on there. So it is definitely not an exhaustive list. They don't claim to be an exhaustive list of varietals either. Okay, so here's what it looks like up close. So you can kind of see here the low acidity is running like this. So it goes around, this is the lowest, so Grenache and Merlot and Carmenere are very low, but a Cab is the next level up in acidity. And then that line goes up like that. So yeah, it's not a straight line. In order to get them all on one chart condensed, they did that. So do we have Pinot, Taj, Syrah? So couple different ones. So down in the corner, there's a way of how to read the chart. So it talks about the acidity. It gives you the grape name, the varietal name. It tells you the countries that grow that. So some wines do not grow in certain countries at all. Some of them grow in a lot of countries. It tells you the names of the wines in the different countries, gives you characteristics of that. So that's what I refer to a lot when I'm drinking. It's like, what is this? I can't remember. It's been so long since I've had a Pinotage. I don't remember what that generally tastes like. I just run back into the back room and take a look under Pinotage and read the notes, and I know what it looks like. So tonight I'm drinking a Lincourt Pinot Noir, a 2017 wine, and I looked that up. So again, wine.com, another good website. And I know I put in a bunch of websites, but I didn't get all of them. So like I say, I'll send you, if you ask me, I'll send you the other one. So I happen to have a 2017 and a 2018 Pinot Noir. I had two of the 2017s, and I was glad that I did, because the 2017 had a wine enthusiast score of 94, and the 2018 had a wine enthusiast score of 91. So I'm drinking better of the 2 years. I'll drink to that. It is better than the 18, but so a friend and I will probably drink these two together just to compare notes and see how that works. But again, you can go to their website. If you go to the Lincourt website, you can get a bunch of information on it, but you won't get these ratings necessarily. Some of them put them and say, we had this score and this score and that score to show how great they are. But wine.com and a number of the others will actually list the ratings for these things. So the purpose of your tasting hopefully is to expand your knowledge by tasting different wines and learning something about them. And going to these websites is a great way to find out what to expect with these things and how well there are. So the rest of those 184, I'm going to leave it up to you guys. You can go ahead and start tasting them beginning next week or whatever, and we'll move on. So Pinot Noir, like I say, this is what I've got tonight, is a Pinot Noir. As you can see, it's on the lighter side. It's not one of the heavier ones. Although this one, what I like about it, it really is a heavy bodied Pinot Noir. So most Pinot Noirs are very light, but this one is a mouthful. So here's the information about it that I like to read. And it's actually considered, they call these heavyweights and ultra heavyweights. This is called a light welterweight, and it is very high. If you look at, yeah, you can see the line here. This line, dotted line here, I don't know, is my cursor showing up on the screen? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
This,
Mhm.
yeah, this dotted line, everything to the right is the most acidic red that you're going to get, and that's where Pinot Noir is. And notice how it goes like that. And then it comes back over here and grabs those. So you really have to look close at the wine chart in order to see that. Okay, so another place that I love to go is a wine site called Vivino. Vivino is an excellent, what I really like about it is this, just exactly what you're looking at there. So this is the Pinot Noir I'm drinking tonight. So this says that it's closer to bold. Typically, most of the Pinot Noirs, you're going to see them rated down here on the light side. I actually thought this was up a little bit higher than that, but this is a rating based on 595 users. So this is quite a few people who are putting this stuff in. It's smooth, not very tannic. It's dry. It's definitely to the dry side. It's more acidic, and I expect that for a Pinot Noir because Pinot Noirs are more acidic. The people who rated this, 207 mentioned red fruits, and it absolutely is. 143 mentioned earthy, smoky mushrooms, 110 oak, cola, and clove. So it goes real well with beef, veal, game, deer or venison, and poultry are the things that they recommend. And I find they're pretty good on their recommendations for food matching too. When you drill down, you can click on this red fruit and you can drill down into this. And when we drill down into that, you see that of those 207 people that mentioned red fruit, 73 thought it was cherry. 32 thought it was raspberry, 9 cranberry, 9 cherry cola, 22 red fruit, strawberry. And this thing has got a whole bunch. You can see more and more and more. To me, it's definitely a sour cherry. So one of the things when you look at these sites, this is the public. So I go in and rate these. Other people, anybody who wants to can go in there. Recently, they've now set up a logon so that you can create a logon to go deeper into this than you did before. But prior to that, they didn't have a logon. So anybody could go in there, put in your email address and verify that you are not a robot. And then you can look at all these ratings and you can actually do the ratings. So some people are, the gamut. Some people may be sommeliers, certified sommeliers. Some people may be certified wine judges. Some people may be average people. Maybe this is the first wine they've ever tasted. So all these are a little bit different. And here's the fun part about wine tasting. As you drink more wine, as you taste more wine, and especially the best way to do that is talk with somebody, compare notes with people. When you do that, you get to be much better at it. I think a lot of these people who just hit cherry, maybe it was a Bing cherry, but they aren't able to differentiate that. Some people never will be able to differentiate that. Some people, as they drink more and they talk with their friends more, I called it a sour cherry rather than just a regular cherry. So that's what you will learn as you do the wine tasting.
Okay, Charlie, I just want to say the ones that say tar kind of worry me a little. Like, does it really taste like tar or?
Well, yeah, it does. It can. And graphite. So balsamic, salt, slate. When we do there are wine wheels. So another thing I have, and I was going to make a picture. You guys all see that? This is a wine aroma wheel. You can buy these all sorts of places, and this will give you, so when we get to woody on this, it can be burned, like smoky, burnt toast or coffee, phenolic, medicinal or bacon, resinous like tobacco, oak, cedar, or vanilla. When we did that, we were leading the wine tasting tests groups that we did, I'd have this handy and I'd pass these things around to help people be able to describe these. This is the way we learned, is by doing the descriptions, the aid of all these things. And I tell you what, we always made up new names. Somebody in the group came up with something that was never on any of those charts. And sometimes they were much better, I think, than the charts. But at any rate, yep, that's the way they are. And by looking at those and those reviews, you can learn a lot about these things. So basically what this is about is smelling, the aroma. It's about the appearance. It's about the taste. So what most people don't realize, we think of taste and we all focus on taste. What does it taste like? Do I like the taste? Does it taste like burnt wood? Does it taste like cherries? Does it taste like blueberries? The reality is there aren't very many different tastes that we can perceive. Most of the taste actually comes from what you smell. So NIH, National Institute of Health, has said that humans can distinguish more than 1 trillion different scents. When you look at all sorts of wine groups and all that, the wine groups will talk about the top 10 aromas, the main aromas. People will talk about hundreds of things that we can smell. Virtually anybody says we have hundreds of different smells, but only 5 different tastes. So the ability to have a wine glass, so you notice the glass that I'm drinking is fairly large, and the amount of wine in it is very small. So when you're drinking wine, that's really what you want to do. You don't want to have a lot of wine in the glass, because what I want to do is be able to swirl this to start with. As you've had it open for a while, you don't need to swirl it, but then you really want to take a deep smell of that. And that's going to really help with your taste and getting the most out of it. So that's what we do. Red wine glasses tend to be these big full bulbs. The white wine glasses tend to be a little bit thinner and smaller to funnel the scent, because white wines don't have typically a strong scent. So really key to focus in on those smells as you're starting to drink the wine. It's really going to help enhance your whole flavor of that. The appearance is also something that we look at. We want to make sure that it's clear. Now, there are some unfiltered wines that are becoming popular. So when you get an unfiltered one, you're going to look at that and you're going to see, ooh, there's a little bit of stuff in there. Drink it slowly. Wine is not meant to be gulped. It is meant to be drank very slowly. So just take your time, and the stuff, the unfiltered, will stay toward the bottom of that. The color, we also want to look at it and evaluate the color. Purple, it could be more purple, it could be more ruby, it could be garnet, it could be brick, or it could be brown. As it gets to brick and brown, that's going to indicate that there are some problems with it. So like I said, taste, pretty much people think that there are 5 basic tastes. So I've seen people talk about up to 8 different tastes: bitter, salty, sour, sweet, and umami. That's savory that you get. Those are the 5 tastes that everybody agrees. That's all we get on the tongue. So having that smell and that aroma is very important. So when we're doing our wine tastings, what we're really looking at is color, the variations in reds and whites and rosés. So our whites might range from greenish to yellow green to gold to amber. Our reds might, like I said, be purple or ruby or red or garnet or brick or brown. We also will look at the aroma, or think of the aromas, the dryness, the sweetness. And when we do when I did wine tastings, when we led those, I had people evaluate more than just the appearance, the taste, and the aroma of it. We went into dryness and sweetness. So we talked about that too, and had people rate that. And the body. Is it a heavy body? Is it light? Is it low? Is it medium? That also is important. Like I say, this particular Pinot Noir is a heavy Pinot Noir. So it's a heavy body Pinot Noir. The flavors, and then we go through that flavor wheel, and flavor intensity we also talk about. I also did a lot of looking at, and as you drink more wines and you talk to people about wines you're drinking and you learn more about it, being able to decipher how much tannin there is and how much acidity. If you have tannin, the wine is going to last, but you also need to have acidity. So if you don't get any acidity and there's still some tannin, the wine is probably getting to the end of its life, and you better drink it. If you've got 10 bottles of it down in the basement, call me over and I'll help you before it totally dies. So you want to have the combination of both on that. You can get more or less, like I say, detailed acidity, and also talk about finish. So Charlie, that spam guy, says, be careful what you're clicking on. So in order to do wine tastings, or even for yourself, you might want to look at some free wine tasting sheets. There are people who publish them. I like the DeLong ones. It is free. There's a notebook that costs, I think, $9 or $10 for the notebook. And if you buy the notebook in addition to the tasting sheet, you also get a sheet that looks like this. This shows you how to fill out the tasting sheet. And then it also gives you a lot more information. So faults, it talks about the faults. What is a bad wine? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. It's got that information on there. It describes all the different tastes. So in which wines, lemon is something you're likely to find in Chenin Blanc and Albarino wines. So it gives a list of that. It also gives varietally correct. We're also very concerned about that. If I'm drinking a cab, I want it to taste like a cab, not a Merlot. So this has a little section in here that says for varietals, the cab sub, black currants, anise and cedar. For Syrah, black pepper, black fruits. For Sauvignon Blanc, gooseberries and grass. For Chenin Blanc, honey, lemon. So all that information, if you buy that booklet, you'll get that as well. Or for free, you can just get the note form. This one, so I've used that a lot. We use the AWS one for years, doing that. I just found one recently, bettertastingwine.com, and that's where, when I was looking for free, I thought, well, I wonder who's other people doing free ones and what's available. And that's why I said, be careful. There was another one that was listed, another website that was listed, and it's just full of PDF, click here, click here, click here. Be real careful. That comes to you from the Steam guy. So what you want to do is, as you're learning about this, learn what is a cab, what is a Chard, what's a Sauvignon Blanc, what does it taste like, and find out which ones that you like from that. Also look at then a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand is going to taste different than a Sauvignon Blanc from the US. So you get to know the differences as you get more sophisticated. As you do more tastings, you'll get to know the differences between them. Okay, common reds, Cab, Sauv, Pinot Noir, Zin, Merlot. I think most people have heard of that if you talk about a red wine. Same thing if you talk about an Italian wine and you're looking for an Italian wine. These are ones that probably most of us, if we've been drinking wine, have heard of: Sangiovese, Chianti, Montepulciano, Barolas. Barolas, maybe not as much. Those are the more expensive Italian wines. Spanish wines, we will talk about Riojas, Tempranillos, Grenache. French, Bordeaux, Burgundy, Cabernet Franc. So in the French, you're going to talk about the region that it comes from more so than the wine. Common whites, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc. Gruner Veltliner is a good German one that I've liked as well. Italian, we're going to get the Pinot Grigio, the Verbentino. Spanish, the Albarino, the Verdejo. The French, Sauvignon Blanc, Viognier, Semillon, Gewürztraminer are real common in France. Then you're going to start differentiating, like I say, wines from New Zealand, wines from Australia, South Africa, England, Mexico, Ohio, Michigan, Texas, oh, that's right, California makes wines too, I forget. Rosés, then you get into the rosés. Great for this time of year. Saturday, I think we're supposed to have 70-degree temperature. I'll be hitting those. I think I've only got 2 rosés left down there, and I'll go grab those, and maybe I won't finish both of them. So the challenge, like I say, is to learn what's typical. What does a Gruner Veltliner look like, smell like, taste like, or a Cab, or whatever. When we get into Chardonnays, you're going to run into oak Chardonnays and unoaked Chardonnays. What's the difference between them? Which do you like better? Maybe I like oak Chardonnays in the winter. I go more toward the unoaked Chardonnays in the summer. So wine glasses, like we said, a lot of stuff has been written about wine glasses and that. Riedel is one of the higher ends. This gives you an idea of the white wine glass. Over on the far right, we've got the red wine glasses. These tend to be the bigger bowls on the top. When we get to white wine glasses and sparkling wine glasses, you look at different ones. They're shaped. Riedel claims that they've done a lot of research, and it's shaped. If you have a Pinot glass, because Pinot has higher acidity, it's going to shape it more toward the center of your tongue where you pick up the savory. So they're shaped to direct the wine to the proper area of the tongue where you're going to get the most out of it.
Hey, Charlie. So Mary said she just saw somewhere that champagne and sparklings should not be served in a flute. What are your thoughts on that?
I've always heard that they should be served in a flute. That might
There's a debate.
Yeah, it might be something new that I don't know of, but we have the sparkling wine flutes, and that's what we've used forever. That's what I've understood. So it's possible. Mary, do you have some additional information?
They were just saying you should actually have a wider, like almost like a red wine glass, so that the bubbles and the aroma have more room to aerate and stuff, right? Huh. That you get a very sharp taste, sharp smell if it's just a narrow, flute and stuff. So it was a divergent thought. It was just, I saw it just last week, I thought, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm curious to find out more, because the flutes were supposedly, you did see the bubbles and you got more of them because it was narrow. So the bubbles would be able to go up, and you would see when you evaluate sparkling wines, the size of the bubbles is critical. So the smaller the bubble is a higher quality sparkling wine. And when you have that flute, you can see if they're really big bubbles or they're smaller bubbles. I'm not sure how well I would see that. But you sure do get the smell. It's very concentrated because it is so narrow, whereas it wouldn't be quite as concentrated. I can see that, but yeah, I've never heard that. So things change.
Sounds like an
and-
experiment to me.
Exactly.
Well, yeah,
Don't
that's
believe
right.
everything on the internet is what it tells me.
Well, that's true too. And these are sites that I'm showing that I've been going to for a number of years. And the people who are wine judges in that also use these a lot. So I know they're real good. And it is true. There, you can't believe everything you get, but sometimes somebody's onto something and it works good. We never had, if you go back 10 years ago, people would have said, you're drinking in a stemless glass? Why? And now you see stemless glasses all over the place. And in fact, I noticed that a number of people in this group are 65 and over. As we get a little older, some of my friends are saying, I prefer to have that stemless because I've knocked over 3 of them with the stem. So, things change.
I don't think I have any stemmed ones left. I think they're all broken. So.
I still do, but I still break them every once in a while. But so I don't have as many sets of 4 or 6 as I used to. I have a number of sets of 3. So aging of wine is an interesting thing to talk about. So how long do wines last? Well, and there's 2 aspects of this thing. One is open bottles and the other is unopened bottles. So when this is a very nice Pinot Noir, and I open it tonight because I'm going to drink it tomorrow night, and likely I'm still going to have something to drink on Saturday night, a little bit left. Although if I do get carried away one of these nights, there might not be. So who knows? But I picked it knowing that I have the opportunity to do that. Otherwise, if it's, if this was a Friday night and Saturday night, we're taking off and leaving town, I would not open this bottle because I know I'm not going to finish it. My partner isn't able to help me anymore with the wine, so I have to do it all myself. But how long do they last? And again, Wine Folly, like I say, good website, good reliable website for information on this stuff. Sparkling wines in the refrigerator will last 1 to 3 days. Light white and rosés 5 to 7. Full-bodied whites 3 to 5. Red wines you can get 3 to 5 days in a cool, dark place with a cork, which is what in all of these put a stopper in them. And I do have the air pump things where you can pump that out, but I find that I can get 3 days just by sticking the cork back in it. And with the red wines, you need a cool, dark place. It doesn't have to be in the refrigerator. I just find that, especially during the summer, we don't run the air conditioner really high. So our house gets up to 73 degrees and even sometimes 74 degrees in the house. And that's not good for red wines to get that warm. So I stick them in the refrigerator. Fortified wines, 28 days, bag in a box. The bag in a box wines, we are getting some pretty good bag in a box wines, especially in Europe. They don't go bad. One of the problems that we have with wines is the cork. And when you put it in a bag, and the reason you have a problem is because air is getting to it. The cork doesn't get a tight seal. So the bag in the box idea with that, sorry about that. The bag in a box thing, there is no air that can get to it. It's sealed in a bag. So a lot of the European people, which was the epitome of, oh my God, you don't break the rules on wines. They're all of a sudden taking very well to that. They've also gotten into that because of the weight. Now, when you put it in a plastic bag, it's much lighter than when you put it in these big bottles. So that's been another thing that I think is kind of affecting them. So you don't have to drink your whole bottle. I used to believe that was true. So my wife and I used to do that. If I wanted a Chardonnay and she wanted a Sauvignon Blanc, I'd open a Chardonnay, she'd open a Sauvignon Blanc, and we had to finish it by the end of the night. We did that for a number of years, and we found out you really don't have to do that. So now I can open this and have it for 2 or 3 nights. Unopened bottles, how do you know? That's the different one. And it's very difficult. Here's my answer to that. When we were AWS members, we got access to American Wine Society. The judges all judged wines, and then they determine, are they ready? Are they going to be ready in 2 years? When will they be past their prime and all that stuff? They did that. And they printed cards. So a whole bunch of cards for AWS for all the years. Just recently, I saw that Wine Enthusiast has picked it up. It follows the exact same format as AWS. So I wonder if they picked it up for AWS to give a broader audience to it. But they print this chart. You can go to, and I think I may not have added that to your list. I don't remember. But this is the same thing. So this is the way you tell how long a wine can last on the shelf. So you can view, I pulled up Australia, I pulled up several different ones. So start off by picking the country that you want. USA is the worst to look at because we've got so many wine regions in the US that it's a huge, huge page on that. When you go to Australia, the sample I did here, Australia only has the 5 or 6 different regions. So you can see all of those relatively easy because they're running. So this is this year. So they're running and talking about wines from 2020 back to 20, they're going all the way back to 1987 on their wines. So it's a real long list. For the US, it's real deep also. For Australia, because they've only got a few, you can see all of them. And what you can see is that you can drink these wines a lot longer than most people realize. So, well, somebody's got a nice wine glass there, Kathleen. I like that. Red wine, I see. So what you'll notice here is it's color coded. So where it's a red, it's a hold. So they're saying, if you want to get this at its peak, when it's going to have all the flavors and the best of itself, if you've got a Barossa Vale, Barossa Shiraz, don't even start drinking that until 2016, or don't even start drinking it now. The ones that you have now probably won't be good until about 2016. So if you happen to have a 2016 in your cellar, that's the one you want. It's time now to bring that out. You can drink that now. Hopefully, though, you have got a 2009 Barossa, McLaren Barossa in your cellar, because that's the one today that you want to bring out. That is now the 2009s, the 2008s, 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3. If you have any of those in your cellar, they are at their peak. This is the best time to be drinking those.
Charlie, I was able to drop that link to it in the chat. So
oh, good. I think I put it, I don't remember, I didn't print a copy of the actual handout. And like I say, I went back and started adding because I did add more to this, and I'll finish up the adding. So if you just send me an email, say, give me the revised one, and I'll send it to you. So that's the way so this is, how long does it last on the shelf? Well, it depends on what wine it is, depends on what region it's from. So Rieslings, you can see those babies, the 20s, 21, all the way from 2020 to 2013, you should be drinking them right now. They're at their peak. So same thing with the Pinot Noirs, 2019 to 2014 Pinot Noirs, you should be drinking those. If they're the Yarra Valley Pinot Noirs, they are right at their peak. So as you can see, there are a lot of years that these are at the peak, and it's usually quite a ways down on these things. This is the US. So in the US, we got California. We also deal with Oregon and Washington. So it's not only does it go way long with that, but also goes way down on that. So here again, you've got a number of them that are holds. This is the, if you have Willamette Valley whites, these are already at their peak, the 2020s, 2021, 2022. Those are at the peak. You can't, well, you're not going to go to a grocery store and be able to buy a 2017 Chardonnay in a grocery store. You might go to a wine shop and be able to buy that 2017, because that 2017 Chardonnay from Napa Valley is at its peak right now. So that's what you'd like to get. And there are some wine shops that will actually have those. Now, where you might normally pay $10 for a Napa Valley Chardonnay for that, in fact, brand of vineyard, if you're getting the 2017, because they've been holding it, someone's been holding it and storing it properly, it's probably going to cost you $40 or $50 for that. So it is possible, though not real likely on that.
Hey, Charlie, are there years from California where there was big forest fires like you're supposed to avoid?
Well, and I've been watching for that, and I have not seen that. Now, Marge and I have joked sometimes when I get the wine out, and I'll check this thing out, and smoke must be the fires. And so I have had some that I have thought it did smell more smoky. Not the case for this one. Still got the real sour cherry. Or they taste more smoky. So I wonder if they were in those areas. I've not done a good job of keeping track of where those fires were, what year they were where. But I got to believe that they're affected by it. People believe it. Now, what they can do is do some mixing. So you notice that one I showed you, it had grapes from Napa, grapes from Sonoma, grapes from different parts of the area. So what they might do is keep some of the grapes, what they think were the best and least damaged ones, and then mix it in with grapes from another area of California to end up with a good tasting wine. So yeah, but I haven't kept track, so I really don't know too much. So old wines, a real life example. Again, these can be old and you can enjoy these. So last year, 2 years ago now, 4 other friends, actually, I think it was 6 other friends. I like to kind of put wines down in my cellar so that we can have wines and I can have older wines and do vertical tastings every once in a while. So we did a vertical tasting of 3 Pinot Noirs. There was a 2008, 29, and 2010. Now we were drinking this May of 21. So these are not, this was Jargon Pinot Noir. There's a picture of it. They're not real high-end wines. They're good quality wines, but they're not high-end wines. But I store those and keep them there. And I did a little chat with, I think it was Vivino. I don't remember which one of the websites, but I did a little chat with Liz because I was going to do this. I said, hey, Liz, what do you think? I got these 3 Pinot Noirs. And Liz's response was, they would most likely be past their prime. I would dump all 3 of them. And 30 or 40 seconds later, she says, well, maybe taste the 2010 to be sure. That would only be 11 years old. And I said, it isn't really built to last, going to give it a try, is what I told her. I have 4 friends coming over in a couple of hours, and we're going to determine, see if they're Brett or if they're corked or they're oxidized. These are the problems that you might run into with these things. And Liz says it certainly could be interesting, fun experimenting. Well, what we found out is actually the 2008, one of the people in the group, as we did the 28, 29, and we got to the 2010, kind of went through in sequence, did 2008. What do you think of that? I thought it was definitely past its prime. Everybody else thought it was pretty good. Liz, one of our friends, just loved it, thought it was great. We did the 2009. I said, yep, now it confirms for me. I think the 2008, it's not bad, but it's past its prime. For me, it confirmed. One of the other people said, yeah, I think you're right. Now I agree with you that 2008 is past the prime. Should have had that a year ago. And one person just said, no, I like the 2008 better. We moved to the 2010s. That person stuck with the 2008 as being the best. I think a couple others said, no, I think you're right. The 2008 was past the prime. But point being, because you got a bottle of wine that's 6 years old or 8 years old down in your basement, doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It could actually be at its peak at that point. So don't throw them out. The key is storing them. And with the storing them, the key is keep them in a dark place, keep them in a cool place, and keep the light from them. So basements are great. They work fantastic. Typically your basements, depending on your basements, now some of the newer basements, we bring air in because we made the houses so tight. So they bring air into the basement just to move air. And that's what they do with my house here. So our temperature will actually get up to about 63 or 64 degrees in the basement. So I keep it up against the wall and it'll stay a little bit cooler. and out of the light and lay them down so that the cork doesn't dry out. That you got to make sure you don't get air into them, and they'll last for a long time. So that was those. We also did back in 17, we did a tasting of Cab Sauv, 7, 8, 10, and 11, all the same vintner, all the same place. It was really good. I was going to go and look up the notes and see if I know I had notes as to which ones we liked. Pretty much we liked all of them is what I remember. Everybody thought they were great, but this is in 17. So we're only looking at wines that were up to 10 years old, 7 to 10 years old for cabs. Again, they're not, we're not looking at $100 wines here. We're looking at cheaper wines and they're real good. So like I say, keep them cool. I think as long as you can keep them at least 60 degrees or below 60 degrees, I think you're going to be fine. Keep them away from light and keep them on, lay them on the side. I've got these standing up to take pictures of them. Well, actually the Jargons, it looks like I got them down in a rack, but these are standing up because they were empty also. But keep them laying down so the cork stays sealed. Out of curiosity, Michigan has come a long way in wine tasting. So my wife's father loved to make wine. So one year in 1988 or 89, when he was here, we did a little wine tasting and we found a map that he loved. So we got this map, and what it did, we certainly weren't thinking about it at that point. What it did is document that back in 1988, Michigan had about 15 wineries. These 15 wineries that are listed here was about all we had. Well, I just pulled up the Lake Michigan shore, which is not all the wineries that we have in the area, but we've got, I think I counted 12 wineries right here in Berrien County, right around the St. Joe area. And like I say, that's not all. Tabor Hill is not even listed on that one. Tabor Hill was one of those original ones back in '88 that's been here. So the wineries, then you go out to Kalamazoo, you go up to South Haven, and you got lots more wineries there. And like I said, this is not all of them. We've got, I think, over 15 wineries right here, just around St. Joe, let alone. It has really taken off. I know those URLs are not in there, so it'll be in the revised ones. I added those later.
Hey, Scams Guy, I saw something on there you wanted to say.
Oops.
There was something highlighted on that slide.
Ooh.
The MichiganWineTrail.com, not that one, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right.
Or is
Thank
it?
you. Oops.
Yep.
Yeah, this, so I was searching for the wine trail, the wine shore. I thought I had it bookmarked and I didn't. So I was searching for it and I did a, Google Lake Michigan shore wine trail. And I came across this site here, mymichiganbeach.com. I don't think that's a Lake Michigan Shore Wine Trail website. That looked like it had a bunch of goofy stuff in there. So again, Sam, thank you for reminding me. I didn't even see my little yellow thing highlight. But,
hey, that's what I'm here for. By the way, what is your favorite local Michigan wine, this area?
Depends on the wine. Dry Rieslings, no, we don't, my wife can't drink wine anymore, so we don't do as much of this as we used to do this. But Fenn Valley had a very, very nice dry Riesling, as did, another one that's not on there is Hickory Creek.
I've never been to Chill Hill either.
That came from-
Have you married? No, I'm like, there's some things on here I haven't been to. Cody Cresta I've been to.
Oh yeah, that's there. But yeah, there's a number of them. Domaine Berrien has got very nice, if you want a Bordeaux style wine, Domaine Berrien is a great place for that. Karma Vista had a great Merlot, I think it is, for a while. Hickory Creek had, I think there was some nice whites that were there.
12 Corners has some nice whites too. I've just recently been there.
Domaine Berrien had a really nice Marzan. Tabor Hill, which is not on here, has a very nice Marzan also. That recently in the last couple of years that we found. So it really depends on which varietal you're looking at. Different. So Cab Franc, if you want a Cab Franc, go to basically any of these. Domaine Bearing has got great ones. Lemon Creek has got fantastic ones. Baroda Founders has got good ones, but Cab Franc just really grows well in this part of the world, and it does also in Ohio. So that's a good one. But yeah, it depends on which wine you are. Our wineries are as good as any of the California wineries. The problem with our wineries are they're smaller, so the prices are higher, even though we're closer. So the California ones have got much bigger yields. So, oops.
Bad wine, here we are.
Bad wine. Yeah, bad
I feel like
wine.
this is all I drink, Charlie, so I can't wait.
So bad wine is not a wine that I don't like. So when you're at a restaurant and you drink a wine, if you don't like it, that's not a bad wine. You can't call the sommelier and say, take this back, it's a bad wine. And sommeliers have run into this a lot, and they need to have people educated. Bad wines happen because it's been in the bottle too long. So we get past those years, off to those, it's past its peak. Bad wines were improperly stored. Bad wines are ones that you open. If I open this and I don't put a cork in it and I leave it on the kitchen counter, tonight's not so bad. But as we get into that, we're supposed to go back up into those mid 80s. We won't run the air conditioner real hard. And if I leave that, it's not going to be so good. I won't get my 2 or 3 days out of that thing. Bad wine also, there are official names to bad wine. Those typically come because of contamination, because of processing problems or transportation problems. The 4 official things that are recognized in a sommelier, a certified wine judge, and the master wine people all can tell these is called corked, oxidized, maturized, and re-fermented. Those are the official ones. If you are in a restaurant and you have a bad wine, they should take that back and give you a different bottle. They need to have a sommelier. They have to have somebody who recognizes that. It's very difficult to identify bad wines. We did all these wine tastings. I did them with AWS. I did them with the stuff that I ran here. While we were members of AWS, I'm thinking it was 3 or 4 times, maybe 5, that we had a bad wine. You know, it's really interesting. When we did those tastings, we had 30, 40 people at those tastings. So we'd always have 2 bottles of wine. For that, half of the room was drinking out of one bottle, half of the other bottle. So it would be rather interesting the few times they come out. Oh yeah, I got some sour cherry. I got a little bit of cedar in there. And somebody also were going, oh my God, this tastes like motor oil. This is just brown and oxidized. This is burnt. And it's like, wait a minute, what are you guys? And they're, oh, bad wine. One of the judges, yep, that's bad. That's oxidized, or that's corked, or whatever. And everybody would swarm. Give me some of that, because that's the only way you get to know it, right? Is when you have the bad wines, and you don't have them very often. So everybody's just turning over, let me smell your glass, let me sip out of that glass so that I can learn what bad wines are. Difficult to learn. I've got some descriptions for you in there. I think I put that in your handout too, because it's hard to see those, but that's the definitions of those. Again, that I think I took that right off of that list for $9.
I was just going to ask what the definitions of those were. So look at that.
Yeah. So if you buy that $8 or $9 book, you'll get this. And that's where those descriptions are, right down there. And you can look those up on the web as well. But again, not very frequent that you're going to run into them. And I think much less so now that we've gone to the plastic tops, the screw tops, and all those. The cork itself, a couple of issues with it. The cork can dry out. And if it dries out, that's where you end up with bad wines, because of the cork drying out. The quality of cork was going down because it was being used. And so we've moved away from that stuff and come up with some better ways to do it. So why do we want to drink wine? This is where we get into the ambiance. Why do I drink wine? To slow down, to smell the roses, as they say, to enjoy life. There's good news and bad news about wine. It does loosen your inhibition. So it's a good news, bad news thing. Let's all drink to that. Thank you, Amy, for reminding me.
Yep, exactly.
So the loss of inhibition sometimes for some people means they'll finally start talking to other people. Some people just find it very difficult. They really don't want to say anything. They don't want to share. They get a glass of wine or two, and now, oh yeah, I want to talk about this, and let's do that. And it's a good thing. I suppose if you go too far on the other end of that, you could get into trouble. So
Fine line. Yep.
but it is a good thing. It's a way to sit down. I love to just sit in the evening. I love to sit out on the deck. We sit out back and just have a sip of wine. And I don't like to drink it fast. I like to take my time. I like to enjoy it. I like to smell it as I'm going there. I think as we're aging, it probably has some real advantages too. When we age, we tend to lose smell. We tend to lose taste. I think by focusing on this, I have a hope that maybe what it will do is prolong my ability to smell and taste and enjoy. A lot of our life enjoyment comes from eating good food, being able to smell stuff, being able to smell flowers and all the rest of that stuff around there. So I look at it as a good thing from that standpoint. It's great with food, and you can pair wines with food, and or you can certainly use Google or DuckDuckGo and get your answers and type that stuff in. I believe these are also all on your, I think I may have added one or two to what's on your handout. Food and Wine Magazine, Epicurious, Food Network, Martha Stewart, Eating Well. Actually, Eating Well has some good recommendations that I've got for wine food pairings on that too. Bon Appetit. There are other places too, certainly all the wine ones, Wine Enthusiast, Wine Folly, decanter.com, Weber Grill. I have gone to Weber Grill. Actually, I ended up on Weber Grill the other night. I can't remember what it was I was grilling, but I wanted to check and see what wine goes with it. Weber Grill had a recommendation for me. So sometimes in the most unusual places. New York Times has a whole section, the cooking section on that, and they go into wines and food. So don't be afraid to look around. So types of wine and doing your own wine tasting. So what types of wine tastings do we have? We have formal tastings or informal tastings. So if you have very formal tastings, someone's going to lead it. People are going to do scoring and scoring sheets and fill out the scoring sheets. If you have informal ones, there may be a leader, there may be not. Maybe it's just four of you getting together and bringing a couple of different bottles of wine to share and talk about it. You're not necessarily going to fill out score sheets, but you might, on the other hand, and do that. You might have the score sheets just to remind you of some of the stuff that's there. Another types of way of talking, I think the typical way of talking about what kind of wine tasting is there's vertical tastings and there's horizontal tastings and there's blind tastings. That would be the three that if you look up what are the different ways of doing wine tastings, that's what you're going to get. Vertical tastings are very difficult to do. That's what I was showing you that I had done. So vertical tasting was the Jargon 28, 29, and 2010. Was it the J-Lore Cab Sub 2008, 29, 2010, and 2011. So those are vertical tastings. Same wine, same vineyard, different years, and you can see the different tastes through the years. Ideally, if you had enough years that somebody saved up, you might go through that. This is okay to drink. Oh yeah, we're in a prime year. Oh yeah, we passed our prime year. I've not been able to do that yet. You'd have to save a lot of wine, and it's hard to save. So horizontal lines, the same year, but various vintners, different types of wines and all that. That's what most of your wine tastings tend to be. Blind tastings, those are ones where you don't know what you're drinking. So you cover the bottles. A lot of the wine tastings we did were blind tastings. Best if you're organizing a group, if you know somebody in that group knows one of those wines, probably best to do blind tastings, and you'll get a good opinion from all sorts of people. It's interesting when you do the blind tastings. I always loved it. Very often, well, when you did them here, when I did them with a newcomers group here, I had different people would lead the wine tasting. So what I wanted, and I had a half a dozen people who were like core people that I could count on to do a wine tasting. Pick something you want to explore, And let's do that. That'll be the wine tasting. So somebody might want to explore cab sauves. So pick that as a topic. We'll do cab sauves from California. We'll do cabs from Chile. We'll do cabs from Australia to compare those and learn a lot about them. And they will always, and I would say when they're doing that, pick one of them that is your favorite. And we would do that. And then we would often blind taste it. So I would wrap the bottles. I would order the bottles and put them in there. And it was really funny to find some of these people who, oh man, I know I can pick mine out. That's my favorite. And you go through there and number 4, that's California Cab. I know it. That's the one we drink all the time. It's Kendall Jackson. Number 4 is not Kendall Jackson. And number 6 is I would never drink an Australian cab. Number 6 is my favorite. What do you mean number 6 is? Yep, undo the bottle. So it is funny, but we learn a lot by doing that stuff, and you can have a good time as well. And you can do variations on these things too. Do it with friends, do it at your home, do it at someone's homes, going to wineries. We've got like I said, a ton of wineries. I just showed you a ton of wineries. In fact, actually, as I was kind of updating that stuff, I noticed Hickory Creek is going to do a rustic wine dinner. So this is a great way for pairing. So on June 30th and July 1st, just coming up here in a few weeks, they have a rustic wine dinner. They're going to pair their wines with food on that. So that's a great way to learn how to do pairings and find out wines that go well with foods and find out what it tastes like. I mean, to say that a cab goes great with a piece of steak is one thing. To actually have a piece of steak and a cab at the same time and see what they taste like, that's when you're going to find out. Maybe you might find out you like a Merlot better with a cab or a Merlot better with a steak than you do a cab. Restaurants have done that. I think I think it was Timothy's a month ago, did another wine and food thing. So during the pandemic, we stopped doing all that stuff, but I think it's going to be coming back. I'm going to watch Planks here in Benton Harbor. Houndstooth is another one. I think they're likely to start picking it up and doing those things, and I think they'll start coming. Those are great ways to do that. They usually have very good wines with it, and these restaurants also have very good, and those that live here know they're very good restaurants. Attend wine events. Waco Beach always does, and they already did theirs this year. They have the big wine event. We've done that. St. Joe on the Bluff. I don't think we're doing it this year, but I suspect that'll be coming back again, where they have a whole bunch of vintners all under a tent. You can go around and you can sample all the different vintners. It's a great way to learn about wines. And there, Amy, that's where you're going to find which one's got the best wine for you in the areas when you go to those events.
Hey, Charlie, Hospice at Home, Corewell Health Hospice, does a wine and beer tasting event every year. But this year they've moved it to the Maritime Museum here in South Haven, and it is a gorgeous venue. So
Really?
yeah, I'll put that link in the chat too, so y'all can have it. But yeah, it's August 19th, I do believe. I'm Googling it as we speak. So give me a minute and I'll find it for you.
All right. So that's which one? Who does that?
Hospice at Home. Yeah, Hospice at Home. It's part of Corewell Health or Spectrum, Lakeland, pick a name, you get it. Follow the leader there. They're all under that now. So
in South Haven. Okay. That would be fun to do. Tour buses. There used to be, and they're picking up. Actually, I just checked and they're going again. We used to be able to, they have these big 19, 20 passenger buses, and some of them are even larger. That's a great way to do it because then you're not driving. So you can go through they typically do 4 to 6 wineries. You can sample the wines and find out what you like that way. That's another great way to do that stuff. All right, so big or small, if you're going to do your own in your own home, you're going to do a small group, 4 to 8 people, unstructured. Are you going to want to start a wine group, a social club? Or I did this presentation, actually, a lot of the stuff came from what I did for the Kiwanis. I think they were thinking of having a wine event every once in a while. So they were thinking about wondering how they might do it and what would be involved in it. And that's how I put a lot of the stuff together for them. So you might be Kiwanis, you might be Rotary, you might be some other organization that wants to do a wine thing. A lot to think about when you do that. The first thing that I have to let people know is that one wine bottle you've probably all seen this and not paid much attention, but wine bottles are 750 milliliters. 750 milliliters comes out to 25.4 ounces. When we do wine tastings, we typically do it with a 1 ounce pour. That means you can, if you can be very exact in pouring that, you can get 25 pours per bottle. So I used to do all that pouring, and I never figured I was too exact. So I would always limit the size to 20 or 21 people. We limit it to 20, and that way, if somebody was a little late and wanted to come in, they could do 21. And I was sure I could get 21 pours out of that 25 because I was pouring about every month actually at that point. So pretty up on it, but
Practice
keep
makes
that-
perfect.
yeah, keep that in mind though, because there are some people who want to, and when I was doing the wine tasting, well, what, can't we have 30 people? No, we can't have 30 people because there's not enough wine in there. Well, can't we, well, you said there's 25, can't you? Well, I'm good, but not that good to pour 25. So you'll have to struggle with that as you go through it. If you're going to do large groups, that's when it's really important to think about what's your purpose or your goal. Are you primarily a socializing group, or are you primarily a learning group, or are you going to be somewhere in between? And communicate that to the people in the group so that people know. It's about managing expectations. If people are coming just to socialize and laugh and have a good time, and some people are coming because they really want to learn about it, now you've got somebody who's talking and a whole bunch of people laughing and making noise, and it doesn't work too good that way. So be upfront, let people know. Yeah, so we talked about that. And then what type of tasting? You're probably going to do a horizontal. You're probably not going to do a vertical because nobody's going to have, like Charlie has got a couple more Pinot Noirs down there. Actually, I've got another Cab Sauv group to do as well with some friends. But do you want to do it blind? Are you going to score or not? You may just do wine tasting and not do scoring. You may just have a little sheet and let people jot notes and you talk about it. But you may also want to do that. Again, let people know upfront what there is. Select your wines by knowing your audience. So if you've got a bunch of people, if you don't know your audience and you select a bunch of dry wines and you got a bunch of people come over and they're all expecting sweet wines, not going to go over so well. So you really need to know that. Know if people like Merlots or Zins or Cabs. Read the magazines or the websites is really what it is today to get your own ideas on that. Tasting sheets, if you're going to rate score, go back to those URLs I gave you for the tasting sheets. You can download those, are free. All three of those are free. You can download those and print those and use those. Basically what you're looking at is appearance, aroma, and taste, at least that much. Like I say, you can go deeper into this. I like going deeper into it when I've had a group that's been doing this for a while and can understand it. But start off like that, real simple. How are you going to do the tasting? When are you going to do the tasting? Are you going to have appetizers and desserts and do like an evening wine tasting? We did the ones I did here locally. We did a Friday evening. That way all the working people could come as well. We did appetizers and some desserts. So as I managed that, I would have people let us know what they're going to bring and manage that we had more appetizers and fewer desserts on that stuff so that people had a little bit of stuff to eat at the end of it. It could be a full meal thing. When we did the wine tastings with AWS in Cleveland, those are full meals. They're full afternoon. They started Sunday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and sometimes I think we wouldn't get home till 10 o'clock in the evening.
Yikes. Charlie.
we had a full meal that we prepared. Whoever was hosting it prepared a main dish, and then everybody else brought side dishes. So it was full meal. Everybody brought a bottle of wine. That's where I found out our wine. We had wine judges. We also had a bunch of wine makers in that group, and they made some pretty darn good wines because they would bring their bottles of wine. So you'd see your Kendall Jackson or your Jargon or your Cab Sauvs that people would bring, everybody that would bring the bottles. And then you'd see one that's got some funny label of just a picture on it. And it says Merlot or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, I'll try this. Oh, that's pretty good wine. It was one of the winemakers. So I discovered after we had been going for, I think, a year or so, and as you're getting to know the people, it's like, you make some pretty good wine. What do you do for a living? I'm a chemist for BP. I'm a chemist for BP. I'm a chemist for BP. Almost all of them were chemists for BP or Goodyear Tire. They're, well, what's winemaking, right? A chemical managing and controlling a chemical process. Chem engineers were great at it. Now, the problem is you got to get the source of good grapes. No matter how good, bad if you get bad grapes, no matter how good your chemistry is, you aren't going to make it into good wine. So they all had two or three different sources of grapes from California that they would buy, and that's what they would ferment and make into wine. But yeah, so we had the full meal. It was a full afternoon. Had the formal meal, sat down, everybody ate, had formal wine tasting where we went through and did evaluation of wines and all that stuff. And then after that, people would stick around. And of course, we were in our 30s at that point, so it was Friday night. Everybody had been working long and hard.
It didn't hurt so bad then. Yes.
But figure out how you're going to do that. You got to put that stuff together if you're going to do that. Another caution that we learned back in the AWS days, a lot of people love the women love their perfumes, the men love their colognes. Wine, remember, what we're looking at is appearance, aroma, and taste. So I have to be able to smell those wines. And when we get those strong colognes, those strong perfumes on, you can't smell the wine. And we had, I think we had been members of the group for a couple of years, and a new person joined the group, and she just really loved her colognes. And she walked into the room, and everybody was real good about it. That's the day I don't put any cologne on, I don't put any perfumes on, I go to the wine tastings like that. And she walked in the room, and everybody just, whoa, what is this? No, don't do that. You want to smell the wines on that. That group was a pretty serious group about their wine tastings and doing the evaluations of wines. Drinking water is really important. Wine, alcohol dehydrates you. And I think the first one or two wine tastings we did with AWS, we found that out. It's a wine tasting, right? So you got 6 wines, an ounce of each. Well, the typical saying now is that for men, 3 glasses of wine, and they talk about 5-ounce glasses. So 15 ounces of wine is okay in a day. So gosh, I'm going to go and drink 6 ounces, plus I'll have another glass at the beginning and glass at the end. It does hit you. You just can't do that. And we found that out, and you really do get dehydrated. So drinking water, pacing yourself with that stuff, be real careful. And if you're leading it, I would talk, and I did talk with people about that, and I wrote stuff up that it may not sound like a lot, but you do have to be careful. Figure out the theme for your wine tasting. So whole bunches of different things. Whites, you could just call it whites. We're going to drink white wines today. You could be more specific. We're going to drink Chardonnays. We're going to go through 4 Chardonnays or 6 Chardonnays or Sauvignon Blancs. Or we might do a wine tasting of 3 Chards and 3 Sauvignons. So for reds, it might be Zins, Merlots, whatever that you want. 6 is probably the maximum you want to do. 4 is a good number to do. 5 is also a good number. We did do some tastings with 8 wines, and those are really tough. When I was 30 years old, I was able to do that, but I don't think I want to do that anymore. That really, and even a number of the people in the group said 8 was too much. You might pick your wines all from Napa or all from Sonoma. So you might do a wine tasting of that. Russian River, you might do a wine tasting of French reds or French whites or Italians or Spanish, Michigan wines. We did a very interesting one that we did. I did award-winning California wines versus Michigan wines. And I still can't remember the name of the wine right down here. The Michigan wines were the favorite wines over these award-winning California wines. So to the point, some people say Michigan doesn't have very good wines. We have some really excellent wines. They were hands down the winners over the award-winning. These are gold and silver medal wines from California that I put our Michigan wines up again. Drink responsibly. definitely be aware of that. You are dealing with alcohol. Aperitif wines is probably what you're going to want to start with. So that's typically all of our tastings. We started with aperitifs. The best aperitif is a sparkling wine. The purpose of the aperitif is to basically arouse your buds, your taste buds, arouse your smell, get it going, but not taint it with strong smells. So sparkling wines tend to not have a lot of aroma to them. They tend to have not a lot of different flavor. So those flavors I talked about are barely detectable between them. So they're very good for sparklings, though you can use other wines if you want as well. The sparklings, a lot ended up being more expensive wines. So we typically went with some others sometimes. Get tasting sheets, again, from the free places, if you want to use those. Logistics. If you're going to do this and you're going to do it in a group, if you want to use tasting sheets, someone's got to run the tasting sheets. I did a tasting sheet where people could evaluate the wines. And then I also had an information, what I call it an information sheet. So the tasting sheet was just blank because most of them were blind. So it says number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we had all the things that we were evaluating across the top, and you went and did your evaluations. And then we did the voting on it. After everything was done, I gave an info sheet. Wine number 1 was a Kendall Jackson Chardonnay. Wine number 2 was a New Zealand Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc, whatever. So that was all written out for them. I'd write it out. What was the varietal, the vineyard, the price, the alcohol percent, and where did we get it, so that we all learned where we were buying wines around here. When you are rating it, does it fit the profile for the varietal? And that's what the wine judges, when they're rating a wine, when they pick this Pinot Noir up, they're going to pick this thing up, and they're going to smell this thing, you're going to taste this, and is this a Pinot Noir? Can I pick this as a Pinot Noir? Then I'm going to get into the deeper, the aroma, the taste. Is this it's an okay, I pick it as a Pinot Noir without a doubt. It's a pretty good Pinot Noir. Or, oh my God, this is just an outstanding one. So that's where you start rating these things, a 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, or however you want to do those ratings on that. We have found some interesting wines when we were doing this stuff here. We occasionally found like a $6 or an $8 wine that had to be like the favorite. We do it blind, and it comes up and I unveil who's who. The $6 wine is the winner, hands down. And 2 weeks after that, there was not one bottle of that wine left in the area because everybody rushed off.
Get you good for business.
Yeah. So we did find, I think there were 2 or 3 times, 4 times maybe, where we were able to find, like I said, it was a $6 or $8 wine that it blew away. Some of these things that we were drinking were $20 and $25, and take it. So hopefully, I'm done before time runs out. Hopefully either this is enough information to get you started in drinking wine if you've not been much of a wine drinker, and start learning about wine. Hopefully if you are wine drinkers, and I see a number of you are, it sounds like, this can expand your knowledge about wines and wine tasting. Maybe you'll start doing some tours, going to some vineyards, do the limo buses, the tour buses, attend the wine events. I think there's going to be more of them. I think we'll get back to that. I'm hoping this summer and next summer, especially some wine food events. Like I say, that one that I came across. Start a group just with friends. Just get some friends, come together. You know, those who are working, probably the best thing is a Friday night or a Saturday, that you can do that, where you don't have to worry about going home the next day. We did the Cleveland one we did was Sunday afternoon. So most of us, I think all of us at that point, had to go to work on Monday, and it's amazing. Some people did make it to work, I think.
Oh, it's like Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah. So that's, does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, feel free to unmute, ask any questions. Excellent job, Charlie. I learned a ton.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Stephanie and I want to hire you to come to our company picnic. And it's at Vineyard 2121, just so you know. and teach, just do a little bit of that. We'll talk about that later. I'll
Oh,
rope you
okay.
into your next mission.
You have to bribe me.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I know how to bribe you.
I
At one
wonder
point,
how-
I had wine in my office that I would bribe Charlie
Yeah.
with. I kid you guys not. I had leftover from an event. It was something Charlie really liked and he was super excited about. I
It's a
was
Domaine
nice.
Berry Pinot Noir. Yeah, or a couple.
yeah, what was
bottles
that?
of-
Was that Domaine
It's a
Berry?
Domaine
Yeah.
Berry and Pinot Noir. Very
Mhm.
nice.
Yep.
Pinot
And I
Noir.
would buy it. So anyways, any questions, you guys?
It was fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, super helpful. And Charlie, if you send me those, I'll make sure that they get out too, but I did send you the list, but.
Oh, yeah, I need,
Yeah, if you send me your updated stuff. I will tell you guys that in addition to this class, it's a busy week at the Campus for Creative Aging. Tomorrow, we have sex and intimacy in older adults. And I will tell you that that is going to be an interesting class. Mary and I have been friends with that instructor for 25 years or 20 years or more. And she is a nurse practitioner that runs a sexual health clinic. Specifically for women for an oncology gynecology practice, but it is very inclusive of LGBTQ plus. Like it is going to be an interesting thing. I've seen those slides. I'm going to try not to blush tomorrow because she does make me blush. I'm just
when
saying.
made me blush.
I just
You have
registered.
not.
We're good to go.
Yeah. Okay, great. Awesome. And there's the link. I just put it in there, just a shameless self-promotion. But this week, I will tell you the two most popular classes I've had this week are wine and the sex class. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe we need to change a little bit about what we're doing here.
Well,
I can see
I'm
you're
gonna
having
give
an
up doing this.
impact at the area agency on aging there.
I
Good job,
know.
Amy.
I'm gonna give up doing scams and keeping her computer safe and do wine instead.
You're going to do wine and Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the other one that was really popular as
Oh,
well.
that's true.
So,
That was really
wine and sex and Bitcoin. I'm just saying that, it's an awesome thing. So anyways, on behalf of the Campus for Creative Aging and Region 4 Area Agency on Aging, thank you, Charlie, once again for a super educational and informational and riveting class. We do appreciate you. And we hope to see you all at the next class.
Drink wine.
Thanks, everybody. It was
Thank
great.